accusations, all the everything, that you've been hearing about the federal government, what's going on with records to show all of these things that he's allegedly done. Remember, the man is innocent until proven guilty. He's faced with allegations only, but the allegations do not look good. Now, the bigger question that I have is, where is all the money? I'm expecting a high-powered lawyer to come in and defend him, especially in the case of your life. But we're not seeing that movement at all. We're not seeing a powerful attorney come in or anything. It was almost like he was using the public defendant rather than a high-powered lawyer. Not saying he won't get one down the road, but it seems like, he didn't even have one on retainer, which is a bad look also. I'm just confused by a lot of these things I'm finding out now. Now, sorry about that. Just got a message on my phone. Now, what I'm seeing here is the government and tax records show that millions of dollars in gang intervention funds have poured into a pair of nonprofits that was allegedly operated and allegedly, put into this former gang leader or current gang leader, however you want to put it, of the Rollin 60s Crips, who they said they suspect of diverting thousands of dollars for his own personal use. Big U from South LA community of Hyde Park, after this criminal complaint was unsealed, they accused him of leading a mafia-like criminal organization called the Big U Enterprise. And they said that the activities he did benefited nothing but gangs and being associated with the gang called the Rollin 60s. And because of the Rollin 60s Crips, they said for years he has siphoned away all of the money for his personal use and interventions. All his funds, the city of Los Angeles paid to a pair of his co-mingled nonprofit organizations, the Ex-Offender Fellowship Network, which did the business as development options. Now, everything in the Ex-Offender Fellowship is registered as a nonprofit with the IRS, and the development options is registered as a nonprofit with the state of California. And the city of LA listed both names dealing with all the contracts. Now, a lot of people don't agree with that philosophy. They have a whole different way of dealing with things. Now, the California Franchise Tax Board, that's the state's tax collector. So when you're in a developing options corporation and your status is suspended as of April 2024, the public records did not cite a reason why. So the FTB, who's the spokesperson at the time, declined this. They declined to comment on the specific suspension and wrote that the suspended nonprofit, corporation loses its nonprofit status and cannot conduct business and fine. So you look at how they got the money, right? So the reason that they got the money is because groups in the city of LA, they showed that they were scheduled to receive about $800,000 in July of 2024, which would be the final installment of a 4-year agreement that paid his organization more than 2.2 million for the intervention work. So what the city would do is issue a contract as part of its gang reduction and youth development program, which they call the GRID. The funds, various of nonprofit community groups that provide gang intervention services. Now, I'm here to tell you, I've done my research, and from what I've gotten gathered from the research, process was actually made there. Crime was less, and the program seemed to be working into the youth development programs that they put in place. So things were being done with the money. I don't know how much or if he siphoned anything. I'm just saying, based off what I'm seeing and have researched, it's actually been doing something with, like, there's actually been process with the money in the community. The actual gang violence had dropped in those areas. Crime had dropped in those areas. The city records showed and revealed that Big U groups began receiving the city's gang intervention funding as back in 2011, according to records to the LA Controller's Office. But like, they received about 500,000 a year between 2018 to 2021. And the city's funding increased in 2023 following Eric, Garcetti, when he decided he was going to increase funding for the intervention work after the rise in violence crimes that followed the CV-19 pandemic and all that stuff, and the crime rate went up. So they basically increased the money into the program if he could help get the crime down, because those kind of crimes and stuff hurts elections. But the federal tax records show the ex-offender fellowship show it received private donations during that time, and there was a total rise in revenue from about 500,000 to several years to nearly about that 800,000 in 2022. So that's how they got to the 2 million in 2023. The private donations was not included on the public tax return for whatever the reason might be. So about 95,000 was going to Big U as president and director of this fund. So he gave top staff members, including corporate officers, directors, and trustees, some of the money, to keep them going. So they compensated them in 2023. Right? Now, according to the criminal complaint that was made Wednesday, the federal prosecutors say they believe Big U diverted much of that money to his personal bank accounts, including tens of thousands of dollars intended that was supposed to go to the group. And that $20,000 contribution that he got from Draymond Green, they saying that Big U didn't accurately file the tax returns and failed to pay tax on undeclared income and engaged in a scheme to defraud the bank so he could qualify for a home loan. But LA city government, reacting to the situation, didn't answer a lot of people's calls, and the city had zero tolerance for this malfeasance, what they called it, of the last 2 years. It was just an oversight on the GRID programs, and the city has strict oversight in place. However, this complaint alleges this is a sophisticated effort to thwart the oversight in many avenues. Now, there's more than about 20 damn organizations that serve under the GRID program. So, is you telling me Big U is the only one that the service providers and the people that provide prevention and intervention in the city of LA, they the only ones playing against the rules here? Come on. Like, this act does not reflect the work of the GRID program, because the GRID program has actually helped lead to a dramatic decrease in, like I told you, gang violence, over the last 2 years, all the numbers have went to record lows. So the grid program is actually working. But as I say, you can't credit just Big U to that because there's 20 other programs within that grid program. It's not just Big U. Now, things will probably change in the future, but as of right now, that's the nature of it. Now, if anybody else can get to the money, who knows? One thing we do know is that Big U's money was funny. And it was bizarre seeing like how much he actually got, or they said he got. Because it's like, what's the risk or the rewards? Makes no sense. You know, that's my opinion. Now, others can have theirs, you know, that's just, you know, like I said, the nature of it. That's how this thing works and keep moving forward.
In fact, we're following several breaking news stories at this hour. We begin with that South LA man who the feds say used taxpayer money and donations to fund gang activities. In the past hour, we've learned that Eugene Henley Jr. and Brian Mejia were taken into custody. Henley Jr. is a longtime leader of the Rolling 60s Crips, according to the FBI. But in recent years, he worked in entertainment and ran a youth charity that the acting U.S. attorney now says was a front for his criminal enterprise. NBC4's Camilla Rambaldi live in downtown LA with the very latest developments on this. Camilla?
Now, hi, Colleen. 19 defendants in total in connection to this criminal enterprise. At least two of them appeared in federal court earlier today. And now, as you mentioned, Eugene Henley and another fugitive are now in custody tonight in connection to this case. A known community activist and founder of a youth nonprofit in South LA, now facing federal charges.
A career criminal known as Big U.
Eugene Henley is accused of being a longtime leader of the Rolling 60s Crips street gang. Federal prosecutors say Henley ran a criminal enterprise and is accused of a number of crimes, including racketeering, human trafficking, fraud, and the 2021 murder of a musician.
He has maintained the image of an entertainment industry entrepreneur running a music label, and of somebody who gives back to the community here in Los Angeles. The facts alleged in the complaint paint a very different picture. It is one of a murderer, a thief, a liar.
Federal authorities say there are other alleged gang members facing charges they say are connected to the criminal enterprise. A number of arrests were made this week. These sketches showed two defendants, Sylvester Robinson and Mark Martin, in federal court Wednesday afternoon.
4 of the 19 defendants were already in custody, and 10 defendants were taken into custody in the last 24 hours.
Court documents also state Henley fraudulently obtained funding from the city of Los Angeles through the Gang Reduction Youth Development Foundation. Henley was the founder behind the nonprofit Developing Options that helps support at-risk youth.
Mr. Henley duped the county of Los Angeles by running a nonprofit named Developing Options, which was set up to pull youth out of the gang life and promote anti-gang solutions. Yet Mr. Henley continued to personally orchestrate violent gang activity that impact our communities.
Court documents state Henley had drawn hundreds of thousands of dollars for his own use.
Mr. Henley is accused of embezzling donations made by celebrities, professional athletes, and businesses to his charity.
Federal prosecutors say Henley could face a 20-year prison sentence if convicted on the racketeering charges.
Now, mostly coming off as a ripple effect, but it's like ripping off a Band-Aid.
Here are expected to be in court tomorrow. In downtown LA, Camilla Rambaldi, NBC4 News.
Government and tax records show millions of dollars poured into the nonprofit the feds say was at the center of this criminal enterprise. Our investigative reporter Eric Leonard joins us now with more on how this organization was being funded and where all this money was going. Eric.
Oh, hi, Michael. Well, the most surprising discovery here is that the nonprofit called the Ex-Offender Fellowship Network, which was also known as Developing Options, a pair of nonprofits that the city says were essentially one entity, were facing suspensions from state tax authorities. The city of LA has been paying these nonprofits millions of dollars in recent years, and the amounts have only gone up. The California Franchise Tax Board issued a suspension notice in April 2024 for one of the nonprofits operated by Eugene Henley Jr., who federal prosecutors in LA announced Wednesday faces racketeering and corruption charges for allegedly misusing money meant for the city's gang intervention efforts. Henley's most recent contract with the city shows a payment of nearly $800,000 due in July 2024, the final installment of a 4-year agreement that paid his groups more than $2.2 million for intervention. Henley, seen here in a red carpet photo, began forming the nonprofits in 2009, according to state records. They began receiving city gang intervention funding as far back as 2011. Between 2018 and 2023, LA Controller payment records show Henley's groups received around $500,000 a year. Then, in 2023, a significant increase that followed then-Mayor Eric Garcetti's efforts to increase funding for intervention work after the rise in violent street crime that followed the COVID-19 pandemic. Looking at the tax records for the Ex-Offender Fellowship, which includes the city money and private donations, you can see its revenue went from around $500,000 a year to nearly $800,000, then to nearly $2 million for 2023, the last tax return available. Where was the money going? The tax returns show while Eugene Henley Jr. was paid $95,000 as president and director, nearly all the money collected went to compensate unnamed top staff members, including corporate officers, directors, and trustees. According to the criminal complaint, Henley diverted much of that money to his personal bank accounts, and the feds say he allegedly pocketed tens of thousands of dollars in donations intended for the groups, including a $20,000 contribution from an NBA All-Star. Federal authorities say, in addition to all of that, they believe that Henley evaded taxes by not reporting all of this income, was also allegedly involved in a scheme to get a home loan that he wouldn't have qualified for otherwise. We asked the city of LA for its response about its oversight of these gang intervention programs. The mayor's office sent us some remarks a few minutes ago. It said the city has strict oversight in place, but they say the allegations made public today show that there was a sophisticated scheme to thwart that kind of oversight. Live in the News Operations Center, I'm investigative reporter Eric Leonard, NBC4 News. Back to you.
And with Henley Jr.'s influence reaching across the community and entertainment industry, there are questions tonight about where else his network might spread. NBC4's Conan Nolan joins us live from the News Operations Center to continue that part of our coverage tonight. Conan?
That's right, Colleen. When it comes to public money, this could not come at a worse time. Remember, state and local governments, including the city of LA, are looking at a major budget shortfall. They normally ask Washington for help. This news is not going to aid that effort. It was just yesterday on the south steps of City Hall when Mayor Karen Bass touted the success of publicly funded anti-crime community groups. A message to Washington not to cut out federal grant money for the mayor's signature effort at fighting gang violence.
Through our Gang Reduction and Youth Development Program, also known as GRID, we are directly addressing gang violence through intervention, prevention, and community engagement services.
But according to the U.S. Department of Justice today, not all of that money was going to reduce gang violence. Federal authorities say self-described community activist Eugene Henley, also known as Big U, received $2.3 million from the city over 5 years for gang intervention efforts. Money prosecutors say instead went into drug trafficking, fraud, even murder, and Henley's own bank account.
The criminal enterprise where hundreds of thousands of dollars were siphoned off that should have gone to charitable purposes, gang reduction, gang intervention.
The news comes exactly at the wrong time for those trying to halt the evisceration of federal spending by the Trump administration, and most specifically, billionaire Elon Musk. While crime prevention grant money is a tiny fraction of the overall federal budget, it helps with the messaging from the White House, says Jessica Levinson, former chair of the Los Angeles Ethics Commission. She teaches election law at Loyola Law School.
Is it possible that this becomes an example for Elon Musk to point to? I think at this point, everything is possible. Everything is on the table, saying, look at this terrible use of your taxpayer money. That's generally a winner for people who want to reduce federal funding and federal spending.
And it's not just the issue of gangs, but also of homelessness. Today, the Los Angeles City Council voted 13-0 to try to track the money they get from the city and over to nonprofit groups. One member of the council saying that nobody at City Hall actually knows how many of those community groups go into homeless encampment areas to help or how many beds are filled every night. I'm Conan Nolan, NBC4 News.
If a man really hated ads, here's what he would do. Day 1. He would install Pi on his computer without spending a dime because it's 100% free. Day 2. He realizes how clean and clutter-free his browsing experience has been since he got Pi. He doesn't have to deal with annoying cookie pop-ups or targeted ads. Day 3. He can finally binge YouTube and Twitch without interruption because Pi works on every website you visit on Chrome. Day 4. He discovers that when he does see ads, he can get paid to see them. Day 5. His life has improved 1,000 times because of the peace he gets from experiencing an ad-free internet. He decides he never wants to go back to life without Pi and tells all his friends and family to download it. See how Pi can improve your life today.
Tonight, the trade wars enter a new chapter as tariffs fly from America.
And that's it. So thank you for your time. I'm out.